So we can hear now. I'm not repeating. So 23 years ago today, 9/11 occurred I will say it occurred predominantly in New York City, but it occurred across different places in the United States. And quite frankly, it occurred everywhere in the world where caring people were able to understand what was happening. And like I said, I'm not here to remember any of the politics before, since, during, but I do want to acknowledge that 3,000 people lost their lives during that event that day. I would also point out that 24 of those people were Canadians. And the real reason that I want to call this out is that many of the people who lost their lives and many of the people who didn't lose their lives, but who were tragically injured and suffered the trauma of the day were first responders. They were paramedics, they were firefighters, they were police officers who put their own personal safety at risk, very much at risk, for the lives of others. And I want to mention that because, as you all know, we are responsible. We have just tremendous service from our first line responders, a group that have very little to do with this at the OPP on the police side, paramedicine who works through the district, and our own homegrown TML firefighting service, a group of volunteers and employees of the township who I know from talking to them and working with them would take the same approach if they were in the same circumstances. They are very well led. They are very committed and passionate to the lives of others. We are very blessed to have them in our midst. I mention this in part because on the 19th of September, there is going to be an awards ceremony for the firefighters. I attended last year. It's found it incredibly emotional for me to realize that their call to action and their valor is based predominantly on keeping people like me safe. You get a chance, thank them in person, think of them and think of those who perhaps suffered or have hurt, have been injured. And if you're inclined, please say the odd prayer that they remain safe and they can get to fulfill their duty and look out for others in good health. And that's really the only reason I wanted to mention it. Thank you very much. And we will now move on to the rest of the regular agenda. I would point out that today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded and now heard on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and the YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, your voice, and your comments being recorded and posted online. We did seek public opinion or public input, on the agenda that's before you at our regular place, TML public comment at muskokalakes.ca. And to my knowledge, we received none. We have received none. There is no supplementary agenda. And there is a possibility of a closed session depending on how things unfold in the next several hours as we move through this agenda. All right, before we move into the agenda items, I'm going to call out and ask whether anyone has any pecuniary interest that requires disclosure. Councillor Mazan. Say it twice, Councillor Mazan.
Thank you, and through you. I will have to recuse from item 8, the consent agenda. There were items in there, but I didn't get that to notice 24 hours in advance. So I will remove myself from that entire section. And then from 12B4, which is to amend the fees and charges for the AMPS policy for short-term rental licensing, the indirect pecuniary interest. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll steal a line from Director Peroshi. You will be completing those forms and submitting them in a timely fashion. Thank you. Okay, anyone else with a hand up for pecuniary interest? I see none. Then we're going to move on with the, figure out where I am here. All right, we have one invited presentation. Are they loaded up and online somewhere? Oh, they're only here for questions. Sorry. I didn't mean to alarm anybody. They don't want to present necessarily, but we are going to have a presentation from our CAO, who's going to talk through the draft strategic plan framework, and to the extent we have questions that go back to either Chris or Olivia at StrategyCorp, they're available to help. Director Pink, it's yours.
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you. Council will recall at your July meeting, we did discuss a draft strategic plan framework, and Council reviewed the vision, mission, goals, and values. And Council was desirous of some more clarity and a bit more concise vision, I believe. Staff did work with StrategyCorp on revising those and reviewing the goals and initiatives, and attached to your report as Appendix 1 is that updated draft strategic plan framework. Should Council endorse that in principle, that's staff's recommendation. We will solicit some public input on that, and the goal is to bring back a final draft strategic plan for your review and consideration at the October Council meeting. With that, available for any questions, and as we heard, the consultants are with us as well today.
Thank you, Director Pink. Actually, not Director. Thank you, CAO Pink. All right. Does anyone have any questions? We have a resolution. I've not read it, but I'll go to questions first for either CAO Pink or for the StrategyCorp folks who are available online. Any questions? Councillor Mazan.
Not so much a question. Well, maybe it is a question. I don't know. It's just a comment I'm having. I've spent a lot of time this past summer listening to a lot of our constituents and the real importance of the cultural heritage of our spot. And one of the things as I was rereading this was just wondering, do we need to include that as a priority at a higher level, perhaps even within the vision statement, to kind of capture the importance? Because I think that's one of the things that connects us to this place is our history. And so just wanted to understand if that was even the appetite of this group. It's woven in through this, but we often are talking about the importance of our natural environment, which of course we all prioritize. But I'm offering up that I hear a huge passion from the community and also kind of preserving the character of this place too, for the long-term sustainability. So for example, something within the vision statement saying something to the effect of a thriving community where generations live and gather in a natural and cultural environment worth protecting. Something as simple as that. So I thought I would throw it out to the group to see if you've also had that kind of feedback from your community members. It's just a comment I'm making.
Councillor Nishikawa. Oh, sorry, did we get a question? That was a question, theoretically. Is there an answer were you looking for an answer from Director Pink?
Okay.
Director Pink, sorry, CAO Pink. I'm going to stop with the directors.
Through you and Chris Loreto and Olivia, I believe, are on the call as well. They might wish to chime in. You know, certainly I think there's a lot of things that add to the community fabric, the township, that make this place unique and special. I think we could probably list a lot of things. The direction we received, I believe, in July was to tighten up the vision statement. And I think, as we usually know, environment tends to take prominence, and that's why staff and the consultant focused on that in the vision. But if council wishes to expand on that and add reference to cultural heritage, we're certainly happy to do that. So interested to hear the discussion.
Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. I appreciate through you to David, the Susan's comments. We used to have it in our vision statements in the past. I'm going to suggest maybe back in 2010 or something like that. And I'm thinking Councillor Harding actually came up with those. There were some good words. I don't know them specifically right now, but I like something. We are more than, we are a lot about our history. That's the same thing you hear all the time. So I'm not quite sure how it fits in here or how we can make it even more. But I will say the vision statement doesn't come up very often in the world here. Other than that, we read it, that the staff said, guess what? We're fulfilling your vision statement. But so I'm not sure that we can get too specific, but we can find other ways to bring out the importance of heritage in our community.
Thank you.
Like, I mean, the history, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you. I'm torn with the councillor's thoughts on heritage because, you know, we don't really, to a point, don't walk the talk. I mean, we don't have a heritage committee. We haven't been leading on that particular issue. And I wonder if we might speak to Chris Loreto on camera here in terms of, you know, he led us through these sessions. And what are his thoughts on what we said, what the committee said about heritage and how it got distilled to a sort of, I hate to say a lack of inclusion, but minimal reference. Thank you.
Mr. Loreto, welcome. I see you've joined us.
Yes, thank you very much. In response to the councillor's question through you, Your Worship, my advice on this would be the second pillar, which is currently titled Strengthen the Township's Community Fabric. The intent there was really about building community and, for lack of a better term, celebrating the culture and continuing to evolve the culture in the township. I might suggest for council that instead of adding it to the vision statement, we maybe reframe or update that the titling of that strategic priority, strengthen the township's cultural and community fabric, because there are elements in there, including references to cultural amenities and things of that nature that are there. And then in the implementation, you may consider things like a heritage committee, so on and so forth. But I think that came across in our workshop. I think we've heard about it. I think there's a real sense of pride and I in the community, obviously, and I think that's probably where it most appropriately belongs. That would be my advice.
I think that's wise counsel. Thank you very much. Anyone with a question on that one? I'm going to actually read the resolution because we seem to have run out of questions. So then we'll have free comment. Thank you very much. So I have a resolution moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that council approve in principle the updated vision statement and revisions to the mission, values, strategic priorities, and goals as outlined and recommended in Appendix 1 to report CAO-2024-002. And okay, that's good. Yeah, I'm advised that this is enough to cover the proposed change that Mr. Loreto has proposed. Anyone with any other comments? All right, thank you. Then I'm gonna call the question. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Loreto. Okay, next up is the consent agenda. And I understand that one among us may wish to, Councillor Mazin is leaving. One among us may wish to pull something from the consent agenda. Is that right? Councillor Bosenworth.
Yes, Your Worship, there's already one item on under the general finances being pulled, but I have a second one under planning. That's items 1 through 4. The applicant's agent has sent an email in suggesting that they would like to revise the lot lines in their application, and rather going through it, having it passed today, I think it'd be advised for us to defer it, and I would look for planning's input on that.
Okay.
When we discuss it.
When we get to it. Okay. All right. So this reflects the poll. So I have, I'm going to read a resolution that reflects your request, and then we can have a discussion after it's read. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that the mayor and council adopt and enact the following minutes and recommendations contained in the September 11, 2024 consent agenda and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Number one, August 14, 2024 General and Finance Committee minutes and action items 1 through 4 and 6. Bracket action item 5 pulled and voted on to be voted on separately. Number 2, August 14, 2024 council minutes. And number 3, August 15, 2024 Planning Committee minutes and action items 5 through 10. Bracket action items 1 through 4 pulled and to be voted on separately. Anybody with any questions on that? Any comments? All right, I'll call it. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. Now, I suppose we have a couple to deal with the 2 pulled ones, right? And Councillor Boson will speak to me. Okay, I will read the resolution, then we'll invite Councillor Bosenworth to discuss the reason why we're dealing with it separately. Moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that Council adopt and enact action item 5 contained in the August 14, 2024 General Finance Committee consent agenda. Whereas committee received a delegation from Mr. Steve Niblett requesting the waiving of township legal fees pertaining to granting a right-of-way through a condition of consent application B/25/20/ML. Now therefore be it resolved that committee approve waiving the township legal fees in the amount of $3,007.34. Okay, Councillor Bosenworth, you asked to have this reviewed.
Thank you, Your Worship. At the time of the vote, there was 6 out of 10 councillors were in favor of waiving the fee. But because of the procedural way that the resolution was brought forward, it actually required 2/3, which is 7 out of 10. And today we just need a simple majority to pass it. And I would just like to give all of us a chance to vote on this again and let it go through. The reason I think it's important is as I said in the GNF meeting, this is a very important access. The applicant who made it happen feels that he shouldn't have to be paying our legal fees to make something happens that's our benefit. You know, that's it's important to him. It's important that we support people who make these, go out of their way to help us on really important things in our community. And I just would like to waive them and give everybody a chance to vote on it again.
Okay, thank you for the summary. Anyone with any comments on the matter? Questions or comments? Councillor Edwards.
Yes, I'd like to ask Mr. Sharpe a question to you. 5%, if it had been paid, what would it have been? Because it was reduced to 1%. He saved about what, $20,000 or more?
Through you, Your Worship, just looking at my notes from the last meeting, it looks like a payment of 5% cash in lieu of parkland would amounted to $29,950.
Okay. And he paid how much on that? Because it was 1%?
So council imposed a condition of consent requiring the payment of 1% cash in lieu of parkland, and that amount was $5,990.
Okay. That's one thing. What was the actual square footage of the easement that we got?
I had that number at the last meeting, but I've since forgot, but I'd need some time to look the sketch up. I believe it was around 200 square feet.
200 square feet. If we sell shore road allowance, we sell it at $1.65, is it?
That I'm not aware of. I'm not.
I think that's what I had. So that really, I think he got a pretty good deal. And it was handed. I had mentioned at that meeting that we should take the parkland dedication. It was voted down. But $3,000 on what he's paid, he still saved over $20,000. was it not?
Quick math, I think the difference between 1% and 5% was about 24,000, slightly less.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. First, I think Councillor Nishikawa, and then I think Councillor Zabits was next. Oh, you'll wait, Councillor Zabits?
Thank you. Through you. I think what's important to me, certainly as we go through this, it can be very confusing. In terms of what the fees were and the dynamics of this particular file. I think it's really important that we as a committee consider what was done back when it was done and to the letter of that, to my mind. And I wonder if, I suppose, Mr. Pink or Bryce could tell us within that document, because there's a lot of information here, if they could just parse through it all and just say, you know, this is what was agreed to 2 years ago or whatever, however long ago it was, so that it is clear, because we've had some input from outside telling us the real way it was. I'd like to hear it from staff. Thank you.
So, Mr. Sharp, you heard that, either Mr. Pink or Mr. Sharp. You heard the question, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, the specific issue was this, were the legal fees addressed in the arrangement, in the agreement? Are we changing something that was agreed to in the past, or was it something that had fallen through the cracks and we're just dealing with it for the first time?
Through you, your worship, I believe the consent application was approved in 2021. I don't have the exact date in front of me, so it has been some time, and really all I can speak to is the facts of the outcome of council's decision, and ultimately the amount of parkland, the cash in lieu of parkland, was reduced from 5%, which would be the normal amount, to 1%, and there was a requirement to grant the township a right of way. I can't really speak to what, you know, the unspoken intent or the spoken intent of planning committee and council was at that time. The applicant does owe the township roughly $3,000 in legal fees associated with the right of way, granting the township the right of way, and signed some documentation when he submitted the application concerning the disbursement of any legal fees associated with the application. So that's where we are today. Thank you.
If I just may follow up, signed a document dealing with the legal fees incurred by the township, by him, or both?
So when an applicant submits an application, they sign what's called a planning services agreement. And it just states that they're agreeable to paying any legal fees associated with the application. So in this particular instance, there was a right of way that was granted to the township. And of course, there was legal work associated with making sure that that right of way was granted legitimately, and the township has billed the applicant for that amount in accordance with that agreement. And ultimately what it comes down to is the applicant is disputing the course of events and is requesting that amount be returned. And that's what we're here for your direction on.
Thank you. Councillor Zabits, did you have a follow-up?
Thank you. Well, I did, only in that I'm wondering what the person originally signed. Is it superseded by the agreement that was made here around this table in 2021? Because I mean, we're always pretty exacting when it comes to the words crafted that we approve, disapprove. So to my mind, I'm surprised about, or concerned or confused that there is this confusion. I mean, he either should pay or shouldn't pay. And it's, I don't know why we're even, you know, so to that end, what does the document say that was approved by this committee that was it should be enacted and that he's disputing or not?
Thank you. I'm not sure there was a question to Mr. Sharp there, or was it?
Sorry.
Oh, all right. Well, let's CAO Pink, please.
Thank you. I think in response to your question through you, I don't believe, I stand to be corrected, but I'm fairly confident there was no formal agreement, certainly nothing in writing that staff's aware of documenting that the legal fees would be reimbursed. I don't think committee gave direction. I suspect likely that just that aspect wasn't thought of at the time. But prior to that, as Mr. Sharp indicated, all applicants, when they submit a planning application, sign, again, a planning services agreement. Any out-of-pocket expenses that the municipality incurs, they obligated to pay. So that was signed likely at the discussion. Again, likely those details weren't thought of, certainly by committee or the applicant. As Mr. Sharp correctly pointed out, I think what's also important, just to reiterate so that everyone is clear, this emanated from a planning application. And because of that, staff had the council had the authority to require 5% cash in lieu parkland and a right of way. Those rights are clear under the Planning Act. It's not necessarily had to be a negotiation. Committee wished to lower, in this case, the cash in lieu parkland fee as a result of the right of way and chose 1%. And that's where we are. Subsequent to that, the legal fees were incurred. We forwarded that invoice to the applicant as per the agreement. And I don't believe Mr. Niblett is contesting or believes it's that it was previously agreed to that it would be waived. I think he just expected that because of granting the right of way. And that's what's before you.
Sorry, Councillor Bosenworth and Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you, Your Worship. My only comment would be, I think when you were giving cash in lieu of parkland, the major recipient there is the applicant because he doesn't have to give a slice of a piece of land. And this one's a little different in that the applicant's only interest was to preserve that access. I think it's quite clear from the beginning, if you watch the meeting, he had no intent of expecting the cash in lieu and parkland to be reduced. That was suggested by council. So he wasn't looking for any financial gain. And he's a avid snowmobiler and a lifelong Muskoka person, loves the place, realized how important it was and was trying to gift it to us. And the gift, you know, the council at the time judged that it was valuable enough to give him 1% instead of 4%. And now he's finding out his gift also includes $3,000 fee to be able to make it happen. And I think, you know, it's quite different than pure cash in lieu. He had a very good intention and didn't expect it to cost him anything. He didn't ask for the 5 versus 1. He absolutely didn't ask for that. He really didn't even know how to make it happen. The council at the time, I believe it was the mayor who suggested that it be done via a right of way. And then another council, I believe it was Councillor Edwards, suggested, well, why don't we waive the cash in lieu? So the applicant had no intent of getting the money and he just wanted to get it done, but he didn't want to have it cost him. And I think we should recognize that good intention. And I think the township got a community got a very access. And I'll tell you that access is used by as many people who live here permanently versus all the visitors that come through that area on snowmobiles. So it's a tremendous asset for the township, and I just think we should move on.
I recognize Councillor Nishikawa, then you, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. I recall very closely and more or less the same what you have described, although you weren't here, but it was very interesting. And I didn't understand why, I didn't know, quite frankly, about these other fees. But my question to you, Mayor Kelly, is there a resolution or is there a way that we can bring forward that I know the importance of this part of the snowmobile trail, and I believe that the applicant did as well, and try to preserve it. And I think when somebody from the township that lives here is trying to do a good thing, I think we should be respecting that. So I'm asking to not charge him those fees to create that right away. And I'm not sure if that's
the resolution I've read.
Thank you. Well,
I think I've read it. Did I read it?
But I just wanted to make sure that, because there's two different questions in here, right? Whether you're going to charge, well, what I'm hearing anyhow, you know, there's a right of way fee, and then then the conversation went, should we gotten more money for cash in lieu? And I don't want to, that shouldn't be the question.
Right. Agreed. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you. I was the one who said rather than the 5% to take it down to help him out. So he basically got a $20,000 bonus on that. And he did sign the thing that he'd pay legal fees. So that's $3,000. So I think it cost him about 4,000 some odd dollars plus the three. He's still about 20,000 in pocket. If you look at what that's assessed at, I believe that property is assessed by us, Mr. Sharp, at about $600,000.
I'm sorry, I'm going to cut this off. I mean, cut that part of the discussion off. I really think this is, there's two or three things, and I will use my chair's prerogative. There's some contractual relationship here, the terms of which seem to be somewhat unclear to me whether they've been waived or not. But the real issue is one of equity. And I think I've heard two or three councillors suggest that when you have a resident stepping up and making a contribution, if that's going to have any cost attributed back, it should be plain and clear right up front. You made to make a different decision to follow through. I don't think we want to be in that environment. I don't think we want to promote that kind of that disincentive to the goodwill and the good gesture of making the right of way available to the users. I realize it's $3,000 and I realize there's a principle in play. Because the last issue that I mentioned last time, and I'll mention it again this time, we can debate this and pursue it until we've run our time and energy to $12,000, but we still won't have $3,000 in our pocket. At some point in time, it is what it is. I wish it were clearer. It's not as clear. The only thing that's clear to me is that the township got real value for the right of way that was contributed. There was an arrangement made on the park in lieu. I don't know that it matters to me how we got there. We're there. And in this particular case, $3,000 is the only issue that needs to be discussed. And I think on the balance of equity, quite frankly, I'd rather we do something that incurs or that creates an incentive for more people to think like this than fewer. That's in a nutshell. Councillor Bosenworth.
And if I could add just one more comment, he did have legal fees of his own to make this happen.
Right. Fair enough. So I'm happy for anyone else's contribution if there's more light to be shed on it, but at some point in time, I'm not seeing any hands, so I am going to call the question. I have read the Councillor Bosenworth.
I just want to be clear that if we vote in favor of this resolution, the applicant will be waived the fees.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that committee approve waiving the township legal fees in the amount of $3,007.34. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? I actually didn't see. Can we hold them up? 1, 2, 3, 7. All against? 3. That carries. Thank you very much. Okay, the next one is. All right. Got it. Okay, the next one is the last in the two that I think were pulled for reconsideration. This relates to a matter that came before us at Planning Committee, August the 15th, 2024. I will read the resolution and you will recognize likely the matter. If not, we can have a discussion about why and who. Be it resolved that the applicant's request that at the applicant's request, council refer action items 1 to 4 contained in the August 15, 2024 Planning Committee consent agenda back to the October Planning Committee meeting for further consideration. And there are 4 bullets here. Number 1, consent application B/18/24/ML. And it's bracket 2159670 Ontario Limited. And the second one is consent application B/19/24/ML bracket Goldhar. The next one is consent application B/20/24/ML bracket 2159670 Ontario Limited. Final one is zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA-20 26/24 Goldhar. Council, before we go to you, Councillor, Councillor Bosenworth, want to have any comment on this?
No more than I already said. There was just an email came in. They said they want it deferred because they are rethinking where they want the lines drawn on the consent agreements. And I presume the staff would support that, because why approve something that the applicant doesn't want?
Thank you. Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you. And through you, I guess my question is, why is this particular item coming through in this format? Would we not have staff would have picked up on the email and simply suggested deferment for a month? I don't understand why it's coming through this way.
I'm going to hand that over to Director Proshi, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kelly. So procedurally, once committee has made a decision on a matter, staff don't have the authority to do anything with your decision. So because it came through in the consent, the proper process was from any member of council could pull it, which Councillor Bosenworth did, and then he has recommended that it be referred. So now that's what's on the table in front of you.
Any other questions? Any other comments? I'm seeing none. I will call the question. All in favor? That carries. Anyone against? Seeing there's none, that carries. Thank you very much. Okay. Have you got any more on citizens members? Okay. This one here. Okay, I am going to turn this over to Clerk Proshi is going to speak from the podium on the appointment of a member to one of the community center hall boards. Director Proshi, welcome.
Thank you. The report is before you. This report does recommend that a member of the public who has submitted an application through our application process be appointed onto the board. So the process for this is to protect the individual. Their name was circulated via closed session. So should you wish to discuss that matter, have any questions or concerns, we would need to go into closed session later. So we would need to table this matter and deal with it later. If everybody's happy to go ahead and pass it now, that becomes public and we can no longer go into closed session to discuss. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions on this process? We've done it before and it worked well. All right. Did I read it? No. Okay, then I'm going to thank you very much for your input. I'm going to read the motion moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that citizen members be appointed to community center hall boards as detailed in confidential memo CCS-2024-21 and that confidential memo CCS-2024-21 hereby be made public. Any questions? Any comments? I'll call it. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. I'm going to call on Chief Morrell to come up and walk us through this report on the procurement of, what was it? Breathing apparatus. Welcome. Sorry, I lost my place on a piece of paper.
Good afternoon, soon to be evening, Your Worship. I'll be brief. This is a very simple award of tender. Award of tenders of this size need to be brought to council for council approval. Tenders have been issued and a single bid has been received for the delivery of a self-contained breathing apparatus for 10 of them this year, as per our needs in our budget. This is well below budget, which will be a surprise and a good thing for council. So the report is before you. I stand for question.
Anyone have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'm going to thank you very much for your report. I'm going to read a resolution moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that contract T-2024-37 be awarded to M&L Supply Fire and Safety in the amount of $118,619, taxes excluded, and that the fire chief be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with the purchase. Any comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Breathe easy. Okay, we've got some bylaws to run through, right? No, okay, on this first one. Okay, the first bylaw that we're looking at, I understand, Ms. Crowder, you're coming to speak to. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kelly, and good afternoon, members of council. As you may recall, zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 1224 in the name of Bastogne was last heard by council on June 12th, 2024, where council gave first and second reading of the bylaw. Council decided to withhold third reading until such time as any cooking facilities are removed from the subject building to the satisfaction of the township. A township building inspector conducted an inspection of the property and has confirmed that the cooking facilities have been removed. Given that the cooking facilities have been removed, staff recommend that third reading of the bylaw be given today. I have no further comments, but I'm happy to assist council with any questions. Thank you.
Is everyone clear on cooking facilities? Councillor Bosenworth.
Just to be clear, I think what's happened here is we passed it on the condition that it did not have cooking facilities. Is that correct, Ms. Crowder?
Through you, Mayor Kelly, to Councillor Bosenworth. Yes, so first and second reading were given contingent upon removing of the cooking facilities. Third reading of the bylaw would be given.
Councillor Kent.
Thank you. And just a question, speculative question here, and I know it's not intended to be just a negative comment, but what keeps somebody like this from the minute we're gone and we approve of putting the cooking facilities right back in? Just a random question.
Ms. Crowder, I'm sure you have the answer to that.
Through you, Mayor Kelly, to Councillor Kent. It becomes an enforcement matter. So there is a building permit for the property, and what's reflected in the building permit is what is permitted for the property. So if it were to be discovered that that was not what is actually on the property, it becomes an enforcement matter.
So that does require that somebody in a neighbor or a building inspector who's going to be there, I guess, a few times because the project is going on, file a complaint. And once the building project is over and the building inspector is gone, the probability.
So Councillor Kent, if you have a better idea how we manage this, I don't.
Raising it for the future committee who deals with planning matters.
Yeah,
That's all.
fair enough.
What did you say?
All right, let's go through the chair with comments. Anyone, any other questions or comments for Ms. Crowder while she's here? I'm just in abundance of caution. I did have a resolution with first and second reading. That's already been done. It's only third that you're looking for. Perfect. Told you. Yeah. All right, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-068 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Bastogne, roll number 2-12-083, be read a third time and finally passed. All right, so this third reading is in, no comments or questions, all in favor. That carries. Thank you very much. All right, thank you. We're going to move on to the next one. There is no presentation, I understand. It's a resolution moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-097 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Lindros, roll number 2-24-066, be read a first and second time. Anybody with comments or questions on Lindros? All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. There are no minor amendments, as I understand it, but you have a third reading to do on the same one. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-097 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, bracket Lindros, roll number 2-24-066, be read a third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Oh, okay. The next one on your list was one of the ones that was going to come to us if it wasn't already dealt with through the consent agenda by pulling it and dealing with it. So we're going to skip over number 3. Move on to the fourth one in the planning or zoning bylaw. And there's no presentation on it. All right, and we've got 2 here relating to this one, moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-099 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Orchard, roll number 6-18-002, be ready first and second time. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. And then we have the third reading, which is moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-099 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Orchard, roll number 6-18-002, be ready third time and finally passed. Any discussion, comment, question? All in favor? We called that. Are we good? Carried that. Thank you. Does this come in? All right, we're on to general bylaws, and do these just go through? Okay, we have people here to answer questions. Chriselle, you can answer questions, but you're not presenting. Okay. Oh, no, I'm not discouraging you if you want to. There's the mic. Oh, okay, thank you. Don't take me wrong. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the original shore road allowance on Lake Rosso lying in front of Concession 13, Part Lot 27 Watt, designated as Part 1 on Plan 35R-27483, Devonley Homes, Inc., Roll 2-26-107, be declared as surplus land. And that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of the said property pursuant to sections 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001, and that bylaw 2024-088 to stop up, close, and convey that portion of original shore road allowance designated as Part 1 on 35R-27483BE, B, given 3 readings and passed. Councillor Zabit, you have a question or comment?
Thank you. I do. And I wonder if Chriselle would be so kind, or Ms. Story would come to the microphone. I don't know why this got my attention, but it certainly did. I mean, if I look at the illustration, it's a juicy piece of Lake Rosso right on the water. So if I might have a couple of questions, thank you to Chriselle. Devonley Homes. So does Devonley Homes currently occupy the property and is there a dwelling on it, or are they looking to develop this particular property and need this piece of lakefront to complete their parcel? Is question number 1.
Through you to Councillor Zavitz. So there could be a few reasons why a property owner may want to purchase their original shore road allowance. I'm not 100% sure with this particular owner, but they own the property. So the first could be that they're looking to obtain a building permit. There may be a building existing already on the shore road allowance, or maybe they'd like to build and expand onto the original shore road allowance. So in obtaining the building permit, they would be required to purchase the shore road allowance. I think.
Okay, if I might supplemental.
Go ahead, Councillor Zabit.
Thank you, through you. So I wonder if you know the dimensions of this particular shorefront?
Yep.
Because again, I can't see it. And I'm sure it's there, but my old eyes.
Through you. So the square footage of the shore road allowance that they're buying is 35,000 square feet.
So it might be, what sort of frontage would we know?
I don't
Whatever the
have the
math is.
frontage. Yeah, I don't have the frontage in front of me.
Because I'd be interested in knowing the lakefront piece, not only how long, if you will, it is, but also how deep it is. Because for $57,000, who wouldn't buy a piece of Lake Rosso? And so, to my mind, in this particular case, we don't have enough information. Well, and if we do, I stand corrected. But
All right, Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. I'll form a question through this. in any other application that comes forward, we don't question a shore road allowance purchase. I'm not sure why we are focusing on this particular one, and in fact, could we be, depending on how the vote goes, could it be thought of that we are treating this one differently than we treat every other one? Putting us in not a great position.
CAO Pink, you had your hand. Wave.
Thank you, my little hand. I think I can answer this with my former director hat. I don't have the precise figures in front of me, but just looking at the map very quickly and hearing from Ms. Story the size of the shore allowance, I can assure you the property is already a building lot, so they would not require the shore allowance in order to construct on it. Looking at the map, I can see the aerial photo. There is a dwelling already on. And further to that, our zoning bylaw includes that area of the road allowance for your lot coverage purposes, whether you own it or not. So there really is no development potential gained by this purchase. It's more of a property ownership matter. I believe what your concerns may more stem towards, but I certainly stand to be corrected, is the value. And that's something, certainly you can direct staff to look at if the shore road closing purchase price is appropriate. I would look to maybe Director Peroshi, when was the last time we updated those figures? I believe we have in the last at least 2 years, I believe. But staff can certainly look at that again if you feel it's too low based on this application. But those are the fees at this time, and I wouldn't suggest holding up this application on that basis.
Nice, easy answer. Thank you very much.
Councillor Bosenworth.
Thank you. And just to be clear, I think what I heard was his development rights on the property include the road allowance. In other words, the square footage of his lot includes the road allowance, but he can't build on it unless he owns it. Is that correct?
That's, thank you through you. That is correct. And as usual, a few odd little caveats to that. One, yes, that includes your development potential for lot coverage, but not technically for the definition of lot area. So if perhaps one were looking to subdivide, that could come into play, potentially. The other aspect, yes, you would not be able to build on it unless you owned it. Our zoning bylaw requires a 66-foot setback anyway, which typically pushes any development off of the shore allowance, save for a gazebo or things of that nature.
Councillor Bosenworth, a follow-up?
A follow-up. So does that mean that he currently cannot build a lakeshore structure?
Go ahead.
We do permit and issue, the chief building official does issue building permits for docks and boathouses on township-owned shore allowances, but would not be able to issue building permit, nor would any buildings be permitted on the shore allowance, such as even a sun deck, a gazebo, stairs, landings, things of that nature, unless they acquire it. So that's typically what we see for the purchase, either just the peace of mind knowing that they own their shorefront, or potentially some minor accessory buildings.
And one more, if I could, just a quick one.
Go ahead.
Does your aerial view show that he already has a dock?
Through you, yes, it looks like a boathouse is present on the property.
Okay, anyone with another question or comment? Nope. Have I read this? I've read this. Yeah, I mentioned it. I remember reading Devon Lane. Okay, no more questions, no more comments. I will call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. All right, thank you. Next up is relates to Skeleton Lake. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that the original shore road allowance on Skeleton Lake, lying in front of concession 12, part lot 12 Watt, designated as part 2 on plan 35R-27496- DeGear, roll 2-21-056 be declared as surplus land, and that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of the said property pursuant to sections 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001, and that bylaw 2024-089 to stop up, close, and convey that portion of original shore road allowance designated as part 2 on 27496 be given 3 readings and passed. Any questions? I'll call it. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Okay. Next one is a resolution moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that the original shore road allowance on 3 Mile Lake lying in front of concession 6, lot 17 Watt, designated as Part 1 on Plan 35R-27555 TRUZ Roll 2-4-063 be declared as surplus land, and that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of the said property pursuant to sections 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001, and that bylaw 2024-090 to stop up, close, and convey that portion of original shore road allowance designated as Part 1 on 35R-27555 be given 3 readings and passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Go to the next item. All right. Okay. Councillor Mazan is stepping out on this one. We have 2 resolutions that deal with amendments to bylaws that are precipitated by the passage of our short-term rental legislation. So there are 2. First one, moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-091, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2023-109 to establish and require payment of various fees and charges for information, services, activities, and use of township property be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Anybody with a question? Okay, Councillor Bosenworth and Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, and through you to staff. So the Schedule D, is the only change on that schedule the addition of short-term rentals licensing fee? And did all the others remain the same? Like, we're not putting rates up. This is just to add that to that schedule.
Director Donaldson.
Through your worship, that's correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Roberts, I think you were next, right?
Yes, thank you. And I have 2 questions and a comment. My question is to all of council. I would like someone to remind me why we changed from $500 per year for a license and then doubled it by $1,000. What is the justification for this significant increase?
I don't know which of council would you like to respond? Councillor Bosenworth.
I believe that the more fulsome discussion was that we decided we'd have a 2-tier discussion, and
Yes.
that was the lakefront properties, which we felt were very usually high rental price, that $1,000 was not particularly significant. Sorry. We divided into 2, and we decided that non-lakeshore properties would only be 500 because of the small operators in places like Windermere and Black Lots and farms. That was a more affordable in line with what their rental rates.
Right.
And that the lakefront properties were considerably high and often in the multiple thousands per week and many hundreds per day, and that $1,000 fee for those types of properties was more appropriate. I guess the final point would be that it enhanced the business case. Financial business case.
And allow me to take a quick stab.
Okay, please do.
All right, number 1, our goal here is not to generate, not to be revenue positive. This goal is to cover the cost of implementation and establishing the licensing regime. It really and truly is that. We think that this is the right number. To the extent we find out a year or 2 down that we're wrong, we'll have to adjust it. Number 2, we also satisfied ourselves through inquiry and validation that we are still the lowest in the 6 municipalities in the District of Muskoka and considerably lower than almost every other recreational area in Ontario.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll skip my second question because you did answer it. And it's a comment, and I'll draw you to attention to your words. We think it's the right number. I've got to agree that the number of 500, I always was concerned with that number.
that it was too low. But is $1,000 the right number? So my comments are, I'll begin by saying I'm very supportive of the short-term licensing bylaw approved by the council last month. And I think, and others will agree, that the bylaw is not perfect. And that, but over time, we're going to make the appropriate changes to this bylaw that'll make this regulation better. To make informed decision, councillors must carefully listen to, understand, ask questions on the information communicated by staff, peers, consultants, experts, the public, and most importantly, constituents. Once a decision is made, whether the recommendation is approved or defeated unanimously or by one vote, all councillors must be supportive of the decision. And that's just reminding everyone. Given the information I received and the answers to my questions that I've been posing on short-term rental license fee, I have difficulty comprehending how I'm going to factually, rather than I think, support $1,000 annual waterfront short-term licensing fee. It appears to me that the recommendation of $1,000 is not based on detailed analysis of estimated labor costs to design, develop, implement, support, update, enforce, and defend the short-term rental program. The staff report identifies the estimated costs for 2005. The report also estimates 2005 revenues based on the fact that at one point during the summer, there were more than 1,200 short-term rental accommodation properties available in the township of Muskoka Lakes. The staff report estimates in 2004, if only 50% of the rental properties are licensed, that the revenue will be $575,000, which is $312,000 over and above the estimated costs. Unfortunately, staff report provides no information on the effect of the additional responsibility added to the chief bylaw officer's workload. These new responsibilities are being added, in my opinion, to an already very busy job at the expense of the traditional enforcement responsibilities. As well, the staff report does not provide any high-level understanding of responsibilities of the new short-term rental program positions, which are licensing officer and the two seasonal short-term rental accommodation bylaw officers. Nor does it provide any insight into the short-term rental responsibilities of the recently hired enforcement administration assistant. The 2023 business case for this position identified that the position would be shared with AMPS. I remind everyone here that the 2025 salaries and benefits represent 62% of the township's operating costs. And we're increasing more staff here. I suggest it is imperative that before approving the short-term rental fees bylaw, that we scrutinize the cost of justifying the licensing fee amounts, as I just listed the things I think it's missing, and fully understand the short-term rental roles and responsibility, and as suggested in the strategic plan, have a better understanding of the short-term rental accommodation measurables that will be used to track progress and performance. So at this time, I ask council to defer decision on this until we have a better information to make an informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Allow me to make one comment, and that is that while we all are all inclined to want to know every last detail of how these things operate, we are way out over our skis when we are starting to deal at this depth with decisions that we have very, very capable staff working up and making recommendations to. This is a staff recommendation backed with hundreds, I'm going to guess, of hours of energy and time I can't tell you that I fully 1000% understand, everything. I can tell you that I'm comfortable that when it comes to policy and when it comes to the vision that we have for the township, I'm happy to accept recommendations with due inquiry, with some good inquiry, but not to the level where I'm going to step in the shoes and do the job of someone else. I don't think we can get better detail than was handed to us. I am going to tell you what, you've had 8 minutes or whatever. I'm going to actually hear from 3 others who had their hand up. Councillor Bosenworth.
Thank you, Your Worship. My feeling on this is that just like all other attributes of the short-term rental program, if we find that this is unduly profitable, we can certainly lower the rates in the future. We are walking into somewhat unknown territory. We have done our homework and found that our rates are the most competitive rates in the region. And yet I suspect our rental properties are the highest priced in the region as well. So that the burden on the certainly on average lakefront property renter is not very burdensome. And it is in fact the lowest price that if you own his property anywhere else, you'd be paying more. So I'm quite happy with the rates that we have at the moment.
Councillor Zavitson, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, and through you. I know I was on record, on the public record, probably 2.5 years ago when we first started this whole discussion, as saying I thought it was a cash grab and I wasn't at all for this particular thing. I think that this council, and previous council, and then this council has really done a credible job of spending an incredible amount of time and energy and thought to get to where it is today. And, in terms of a cash grab, I guess to Councillor, to the councillor's point, we wouldn't know how much cash to really grab. And I think to my gentleman to my right, I mean, I'm just concerned that we're entering into an arrangement where we're going to cost this corporation money. And I don't believe with the present pricing that we are. And I think the numbers speak for themselves. I think staff has done a very credible job of bringing us these documents, and I'm going to support it here and now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent.
Thank you. I would actually say, I think, there is a financial plan. It's a fine financial plan. It's not done monthly, but if anything, the costs are underestimated. Okay. So I don't think we need to be worrying about the fact that we may end up making a little more money. That's assuming, of course, that 50% of all those STRs come in. The ability to get those 50% of the people to sign up, get the paperwork done. I don't think there's anywhere enough staff in here between now and implementation in the summer to get it done. I think we're understating it. So my guess is we don't end up with a big profit. I think we are lucky if we end up at break even. And so it looks a little heavy on paper, but I don't think the $1,000 rental is the place to go. That fee is so reasonable, just let it go. It may give us more comfort to hire some more bylaw officers if we need it.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Roberts, do you have a comment back? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm only speaking up because of my feelings, because of I attended 4 or 5 association, lake association meetings, and these concerns were brought up to my attention from the traditional small family rentals that are paying the same price as a ghost hotel. And just to state my position, I'm not doing staff's job. I'm just demonstrating that or communicating the information I have not seen. And it is a trust, and I really trust our staff. But I think we keep on growing staff. We're downloading work on the bylaw officer, where it's supposed to be. We said we need more bylaw officers, but he's actually now going to be heavily involved in AMP. So maybe we should be getting more of him or split him somehow. And that's why I'm bringing this forward. And at 62% of our budget being in staff, we really got to start looking at is there some way else we can do this rather than keep adding to the pot. And I agree with my colleague here on the right about is $1,000 a knife? Is it $2,000? Because I know that I've been told by staff that other municipalities are are finding that this is a real challenge. This is costly. So this is why I bring it up. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for that. Counselor Kent and then Counselor Edwards.
I was just gonna make one quick follow-up, which is that it really, in my opinion, on the bylaw side becomes a certain level of service issue, which is, so we have a few more bylaw officers, where do we direct our staff to work most productively to deliver the level of service that is, you know, that comes quite clear, that demands from people. Perhaps bylaw is one of the areas that really is an area that we need to be putting more money into. And if it turns out that we're not using them there, I think there's plenty of places for us to put them.
Thank you. Counselor Edwards.
Yes, you know, these are run as businesses, a lot of them. If they had to go and be a commercial tax, they would be paying $575 per 100,000. So they had $1 million property, they'd be paying 5,750. And I checked with Director Donaldson on this, and that they're getting away pretty cheap at $1,000, a lot of them, and I will be supporting it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone, any other questions? I have to tell you, I've come a long way. I spent 35 years. I've never thought I'd preside over a meeting where the goal was to break even. This is very difficult. It's a difficult one for me. Counselor Zavitz.
Well, thank you, and through you, and for that, you know, we had the OPP chief here today. And, you know, there's lots of talk about the district and how much this corporation pays out in tax dollars. So, you know, I'm not sure what the OPP bill is, but we must be paying $7 million. Okay, so to me, to look at 1,200 possible clients of short-term rental for us as a corporation, to cover that off with a $1,000 per outlet, it just seems like the deal of a lifetime for them, and a lot of assurances for the township if we get this right. And I can't imagine thus far, it looks like we're going to get it right, but I hear the cautionary tales. I mean, it's a concern.
It's a big step. It's a big leap for us. I'm extraordinarily proud of what we've done to pull this together. And I trust and I hope that the rollout and the sign up of all of the new licensees can go as well as it's gone to get us this far. I really do. Okay, I'm going to say there's no more questions or comments. Then I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Worship. And if you can endure two questions to staff. The first one is, was there any kind of criteria that you applied when using the starting point for the fines? And they range from $500 to $5,000, second one being double that, and the third one being triple the double. So they go up very quickly, which I applaud. I was just curious. I was trying to find out what was the common thread about when is the initial fine only 500 and 1,000 or 2,000. It was just sort of, this is the general feeling that's how bad the infraction was, and I guess that's fine. But I was just wondering if there's any harder criteria.
CEO Pink, are you waving your little hand?
Yes. Thank you, through you. It is somewhat subjective. I wouldn't say there's science, but bylaw staff are quite familiar with comparable infractions violations in other municipalities and what the courts expect. And we sort of weigh that to the severity of the offense. But ultimately, it is up to council to approve those numbers. These numbers were in previous staff reports and they were accepted. Not to say that can't change now, but they are again what we feel is appropriate relative to the violation. I think Mr. Kennedy will likely want to add further, but I think we're not permitted, or it's not intended to be punitive. It's to discourage that violation and future violations.
And if I could just ask my supplemental question, so Mr. Kennedy can answer both of them. One of the key components, in fact, you know, one of the very important components, I believe, personal belief, of the short-term rental is the concept of responsible person. And we have said that the first violation of a responsible person is $1,000. And it just seemed to me that being that one of the most important attributes, perhaps that should be a little bit higher. So as a suggestion, so Mr. Kennedy can answer both my questions and maybe answer the second one while he answers the first one.
Welcome, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Your Worship.
You heard the questions?
I think through you, I think CAO Pink did answer that question quite well. It's realistically based on the severity and just through experiences with other municipalities and what they're using for their fine amounts under AMPS. So they're the only two that were decided on by committee were obviously the operating without a license and then operating while suspended. But everything else is relatively in line with what our other bylaws would be. You take tree conservation and site alteration, for example. Those first offenses are $2,000. So we have to find some sort of balance between every bylaw and make sure that, as CAO Pink said, it's not punitive in nature and it still promotes compliance at the end of the day.
Councillor Bosenworth?
I'd be curious if anybody else on council might also think that the failure to have a responsible person might be worth more than $1,000 as a first offense, just given its importance.
Anyone want to speak on that one? Not seeing an appetite for it. Councillor Burry.
You know, I think that it's kind of a, at least we're going to do it this time and not just warn them and warn them and warn them and warn them. It's a bit of a shot across the bow and like recognize it goes up after. So everyone makes mistakes and given that we're not doing a 3 strikes and you're out with wardings this time, I think it's actually probably a pretty fair place to, you know, it's enough to catch the attention and it's not enough to say, you know, what is something else.
Anyone else with a comment or question or a proposal? No, I'm not seeing anything. I read it right. I read this, so I will call the question. All in favor? Thank you very much. That carries. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Oh, he's bailed.
How do you like it this hot? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay, I don't have a resolution. Yes, I do. I guess I just read whatever's here. Okay, let me see if this match up. Okay, I'm going to read a resolution. It's number 5 on your list under general and other, if you are following along your program. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-093, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the corporate seal to site license agreement between the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes and Spectrum Telecom Group, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. And Director Donaldson, are you on this one?
I am, Your Worship.
Well, then carry on. Thank you.
Just have a few comments. So just to recap the report. So we have entered into 8 site licenses many years ago with Core Broadband. Those licenses have moved forward. At this time, 1 was terminated, 6 have expired, and we have 1 that is still currently in effect. Spectrum Group purchased Lakeland Networks wireless point-to-point business earlier this year, and they're interested in keeping 5 of these sites for their equipment. They're looking to make significant investments in equipment at several locations. which will improve service across the township and one of those changes includes adding some additional height to a tower at Bass Lake. These agreements have been reviewed by legal counsel and comply with all township policies. The fee that's been proposed in the agreements is not out of line with the limited research I was able to do with other municipalities who have similar agreements with small internet service providers. There's an additional benefit that comes through this agreement that we will receive a significantly discounted service fee for internet services at our 15 area locations, garages, community centers, and so on that have the service. And with amended termination and renewal rights in this new agreement that we didn't have in the previous agreement, we're recommending that this agreement move forward.
Thank you very much. Anyone, Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you. So, Mark, you're our resident tower specialist, so I have a couple of thoughts for you as it relates to tower enlargements / additions. So obviously inherent within this agreement is the increase in height from 96 feet to 120 feet. What I visualize every day when I wake up and look at the Torrance Tower, which I know has nothing to do with this, except the Torrance Tower, you know, what they do is they hang all kinds of funky stuff off of it. So it can be 120 feet high, but it, you know, no one ever contemplates the width, and we may not have any input to that, but all I'm suggesting is that Torrance Tower over years, and I know Skeleton Lake people have come forward arguing against the tower up there. A tower not only is 120 feet tall, but it's X feet wide. And, you know, with the things that they're adding onto it, it becomes an incredible, I hate to say it, an eyesore because it's got its cost benefit and its advantages. But can I ask you, do we have any say in what, are there widths? Is it 120 feet tall by 12 feet wide? Or, I mean, that sounds weird, but seriously, there are huge things stuck on that so that it occupies a real visual footprint on our shoreline, on our skyscape.
Dr. Donaldson.
Through your worship, and I'm not a tower expert, but there are diagrams attached to the agreements that are in the appendix to the report. If I scroll down to the one that is for Bass Lake, they do not have widths on it, but on some of the other ones, they have some notifications that they're, you know, 4 feet at the bottom, 1.5 feet at the top. We wouldn't have any direct control over what they're putting on the tower, but that being said, I think these towers they're there now, and they have been built specifically for wireless services that were offered by the previous owners. I don't think that the intent, and I'm speculating, I don't believe the intent is to sell off space on the towers for other services.
Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and for you. I just wonder, I mean, it's one thing to have a 120-foot needle into the sky. It's quite another thing to have aluminum boxes that are 6 feet wide by 18 feet high on the left side and the right side. And that is experiential. I can tell you, go look at Torrance. And over the years, it's developed and grown from a tower, a needle, if you will, to like max height and I guess max width. And I'm just saying for the protection of our taxpaying constituents in Bass Lake and elsewhere, could we consider some caveat on this agreement, these agreements that do not exceed a particular width? I mean, if we even have that ability. Thank you.
Director Donaldson.
Through your worship. So again, I don't think what they're anticipating or speculating to replace what's there is going to be, it's not different than what's there now. So I don't think it would change the landscape from that point of view. I would also say that this federally regulated by Industry Canada, and that allows them to put up the tower to a certain height, and because there's one already there. So I don't think we have to worry about them going to 150 or 180. Like, we're not talking about like exponential growth height wise, and I hear what you're saying width wise, and I can certainly clarify what equipment is being put on the towers. But again, I believe that the equipment that will be there will be very similar to what's currently there on the landscape that we have currently.
Your arrangement.
Yeah. Councilor Nishikawa, you had a question?
Thank you, through you to Mark. Again, my concern would be that our request, if we have any requests, would be to extend the foliage, if I was to say the foliage part of it. You know, like, I don't want to just see the metal. We're still gonna get a tree, I would hope, in these locations. Hopefully, like, can we just ask for that? Because that was it was an interesting conversation for lots of different times, that some of them were gonna be trees and some of them weren't, and so.
So
Director Donaldson, can we
through
get
your
three?
worship, yeah, through your worships. So I did mention that notion of the camouflage that can go on them. Those, my understanding, again, not being an expert, my understanding is those are more for the antennas that are more like a pole. There's a straight up pole. These ones are more almost like a TV tower type thing. So it's I think the foliage on those is not as available as it would be for what makes another one that's just a pole look like a tree from a distance.
Councilor Nishikawa.
Thank you. So it is sort of interesting. I guess more, I'm now curious because the status of our Torrance Tower changed over the years. I think only Alan and I and David know about this, but just saying, that happened through our fire department. And, oh, yay. Could I have an update? Thank you.
Chief Morales.
Yeah, I didn't want to extend the treasures behind the podium on a very simple issue, and it's become a complicated issue. But I'll give you what I understand the tower arrangement. We were able to buy for $1 from the Department of Highways at the time. They had a tower in Torrance. We bought the tower. Another agency approached us, which was, I believe, Bell Canada, and said that they would like to rebuild the tower and then put us on the top of it and pay the township money. And they did that. So the arrangement had nothing but benefit for the township. At the time, there was no tree camouflage that was in our best interest. And to this date, I don't know the number, but I know that I recently asked the treasurer and he corrected me on the number. So I know that we do get paid money from Bell Canada for that tower. So despite its ugly look, it's an amazing tower for our situation. And it allows us to actually get connectivity all the way down to Innisfil for our fire department, which is pretty rare. So we have a very big coverage pattern. Just want to give, for history, the counselor is correct. It was a really good deal for the township at that time, but I don't want to defer from what the treasurer is trying to promote here.
All right, Councilor Edwards and Councilor Bosenworth.
Thank you very much, Sue. You. I see that they don't want the Raymond Tower. Is somebody else using that, and will we sell internet either at the fire station or the community center?
So through your worship, so the tower that's at the Patterson Yard is the one that's kind of servicing that area. There isn't a tower, to my knowledge, currently on the Raymond site. And the Tomlin Bluffs ones has been decommissioned and they'll remove the equipment from there.
Supplemental then.
Go ahead.
Will there be a loss of service in that area?
Through your worship, to my knowledge, they're looking to expand service as much as possible. So by putting the tower in these areas, they think that they've got, where there's demand, they've got things covered off.
Thank you.
Councilor Bosenworth.
Seeing as we've diverted quite a bit, just be careful what you wish for when you ask for turning towers into pine trees. All those little needles are made of plastic and they all eventually fall off into the environment.
Wow. Okay, anyone with more questions or comments? And Director Donaldson, you've crunched the numbers. You're pretty confident we can't possibly make money from this, right? I've read the resolution. I will call the question. All in favor? Thank you very much. That carries. Okay. All right, we have a resolution relating to municipal funding. Do you want to speak to it first, Director Donaldson, or are you just here for questions?
Through your worship, just a couple of comments. I mean, the township's funded from, benefit from this funding for several years. The current bylaw that authorizes us to enter into the agreement with AMO for the gas tax, former gas tax, is now the Canada Community Building Fund, expired last March, and a new bylaw will allow us to continue to receive funds in the future.
Thank you for that. I will read a resolution moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-094, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the corporate seal to a municipal funding agreement between the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Anybody with questions, comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Okay, next one, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-101 being a bylaw to deem Lot 4 on Plan M63 in the former Township of Medora, now in the Township of Muskoka Lakes, District Municipality of Muskoka, being a lot on a plan of subdivision is hereby deemed not to be a lot on a plan of subdivision for the purposes of Section 50 Sub 3 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, bracket Gomans, roll number 7-7-025-06, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Anyone with questions on this matter? Any comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay. Alrighty then. Next one up is a resolution moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-077 to designate site plan control, part of lot 31, concession 11, more particularly described as part of lots 13 to 15, concession 5 and 6, Medora, Little, roll number 4-2-013, to be ready first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions? Comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. All right, we have two motions left because we are not going to have to go into closed. We solved that already. First one is the confirmation bylaw moved by resolution moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-102 to confirm the proceedings of council on September 11, 2024 be ready first, second, and third time and finally passed. All in favor? That carries. And look at your watches. We have one more resolution moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that council adjourn at 4:19 p.m. and the next regular meeting of council will be held on Wednesday, October the 16th at 1 p.m. electronically from the council chambers, municipal offices in Port Carling, Ontario. All in favor? Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. That's terrific. Everybody gets to go home.